All right. Hi, everybody. Let me stop screen sharing. Hello, I'm Enfys Book. I am here with the debut episode of 4 Quick Cues Book Talk with Enfys. And I'm super excited that my first guest is Jack Chanek. Did I pronounce that right?
You
Chanek?
did. You're like the first
Awesome.
person to pronounce it right.
Oh, fantastic. Who is the author of the fantastic book Qabala for Wiccans, which I would hold up, but the blur background thing makes it bad. So look at Jack there. So the way this is going to work is I'm going to do a brief intro of Jack. I'm going to roll this fabulous rainbow D20. I have 20 questions prepared, but I will ask 4 chosen at random by the dice. And at the end, if there are questions from the audience, we will select those as well. And then we'll go from there and call it a day. It should be pretty short and fun. Are you ready, Jack?
I'm so ready.
All right, you got your wine. That's good.
I have non-alcoholic wine. This is my
non-alcohol.
Because I don't really drink, but
well, that's fair.
Yeah.
But anyway, so Jack Chanek, pronouns he, him, his, is a 3rd-degree Gardnerian priest, a Slavic polytheist, and a tarot reader. Outside of paganism and the occult, he's an academic philosopher working on a PhD in the history of philosophy, specializing in Immanuel Kant's philosophy of science. Welcome, Jack. So let's see what the D20 has to say. All right, first one is 4. What's a magical text you keep referring back to and why?
I was kind of hoping I'd get this question. So there are several that I circle back to quite frequently, but sort of in the spirit of promoting the Qabala book, I think that we should talk about a Qabala text. And really, for me, the definitive text in magical Qabala, the one that I go back to over and over and over again, is Dion Fortune's The Mystical Qabala.
Yep.
There's just so much in here. This is not an easy first Qabala book. It's incredibly dense. There's a lot going on here. Every time I come back to this book, there are passages that I have to sort of like squint and puzzle over and read through several times. And she also was not necessarily what we would consider socially aware by today's standards. She was a wealthy white woman writing in the year 1935. The book has moments where it's quite racist or homophobic, et cetera, et cetera. And you have
ableist
to sort of
too.
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely. And you have to read through that, which can be frustrating sometimes, particularly for a contemporary reader who's just trying to dive into this. But the material in this book is just unparalleled. And this is the sort of book that you can flip open to a random passage and you find incredible things. I have opened to a random page. The right of Chokhmah, if such it can be called, is concerned with the influx of cosmic energy. It is formless, being the pure impulse of dynamic creation. And being formless, the creation it gives rise to can assume any and every form. Hence the possibility of sublimating creative force from its purely priapic aspect. That's just like a paragraph at random, but there's just these little snippets of real dense wisdom that you have to go through over and over and over again and highlight and take notes on and underline. But every time I open that book, I find something that I hadn't seen a previous time that I've read it. So that's really a foundational text for me. And as far as Qabala goes, that's the foundational text for me.
Yeah, hard agree. Honestly, that book is incredibly dense with good stuff, and there's some chaff you have to weed out along the way for sure. But yes. All right, great. We're off to a good start. 16 is the next one we get, which is, what are your favorite things to teach in a workshop, classroom, or conference setting, and why?
So probably just the intro to the Tree of Life, just walking through the Tree of Life. I think largely because that's a really rewarding one to be able to teach interpersonally. That's a really rewarding one to sit in a room with people and talk through it, because everyone thinks that the Tree of Life is going to be dense and terrible and complicated, and they're going to walk out and grumble to each other about what a waste of time the past hour and a half was. And when you can actually like get people in a room and just have a conversation about the Tree of Life and be like, here's what this is, here's why it's interesting to us, here's a little bit about how it's structured, and then let's just talk through it bit by bit and show that it actually is a lot more intuitive than people expect it to be, makes a lot more sense, lines up very neatly with a lot of the kinds of magic that people already practice. I find that incredibly rewarding. I find that just really, really wonderful. As opposed to like tarot workshops, right? I do a lot of tarot work as well. But teaching tarot in a class, in a workshop, is a lot harder because you want to be like sitting across the table from one person and pulling out cards and like looking at a reading dynamically one-on-one. It's a lot harder to translate that kind of teaching to a classroom sort of setting. So I find that talking through the Tree of Life really lends itself much more easily to the format of like a workshop or a class.
All right. I tend to agree for what it's worth. Yeah, I've had a similar experience with teaching Qabala versus tarot. It is tricky, and there's so many opportunities to open that up for new folks. So let's see. 7, lucky 7. What's something you wish other magical or pagan authors would do less?
Oh, I have a thing for this. I have a thing for this. I'm not going to name names. There are names that I have in mind, but I'm not gonna name anyone. No, so there's a trend that you see in a lot of, and I think this is particularly true in witchcraft publishing, more so than in like, grimoire magic or astrological magic or any of those, largely because you really have to cite your sources in those areas. But in witchcraft publishing, there's a real habit that authors have of sort of making something up whole cloth and then passing it off as traditional. And this is not just a problem of the 1970s. This is a thing that people still do now. At varying degrees of, sometimes it's like, this is a traditional thing in the sacred black goat crystal moon tradition of witchcraft, which just so happens to be the tradition of witchcraft that I invented. Or sometimes someone will just make a claim and say, like, traditionally you would use the kitchen knife for spells of whatever, healing. And just not say where the traditionally comes from, because it doesn't really come from anywhere, it comes from them. And I think it's really important to note, like, there is nothing wrong with magical innovation, right? Testing things, experimenting things, coming up with new methods, new ideas, new myths and stories. All of that is powerful and important and really good work that contributes something really, really meaningful to the magical community as a whole. And I don't think that people should stop doing that, but I wish that we would all be a little bit more honest about where we're getting the things that we write about, right? If it comes from you, if you made it up, that's wonderful. Own it. Be proud of that. And don't sort of hide it under vague and ill-defined claims of traditional practice coming from here, there, or elsewhere.
All right. So that was number 3, correct? So we got one more. We're on a roll here, so to speak. I got 12. Ah, a little bit of a pun. Where do you like to write?
So the pandemic changed a lot of that, because I was at home a lot. And I can't show you my desk right now, but my desk is just completely covered over with like bric-a-brac, right? Like all the clutter in my room ends up on my desk. So a lot of the time I end up writing in my bedroom, and I use my bed as a desk, which is what I'm doing right now. My computer is set up on my bed. And that's where I do most of my writing. As things started to open up in year 2 of the pandemic, I was able to sort of go back to work and start working in an office setting a little bit more. So sometimes I'll do like witchcraft writing while I'm at the office instead. But for the most part, particularly when we're talking about like witchcraft writing, blogging, sort of any of the stuff that I don't get, that doesn't pay my bills, I'll be right here in my bedroom, facing my bed with the computer laid out on my bed.
One thing I noticed for myself is that I ruined my back during the pandemic writing on the couch. And so one of the first big purchases I've made in the last few months with my partner is a new couch, because we were both like, it was a futon and like not built for back support. So Yeah, I had to learn a hard lesson there about spending too much time writing in a place that was not very supportive.
Yeah, I
But
had
yeah.
like same thing the first probably 6 months of the pandemic, especially like when we're all, terribly like the most mentally ill we've ever been because there is death raining from the skies. Like I spent far too much time just lying in my bed, and I have a cheap mattress. I have a really, really bad mattress. And at some point, I'm young, I'm in my mid-20s. My lower back just went and I like literally could not tie my shoes because my back had seized up so much. That was fun. That was a great time.
Ah, yes, time marches on. We get older, things get less comfortable. So we have a moment for questions from the chat, and I don't see any at this moment. I see Jeff saying hi. So hi, Jeff. Good to see
Hi,
you.
Jeff.
Um, so at this point, while we wait to see if anyone throws a question in, can you tell people where to find you online? And I have already sort of cheated on this and have a nice list of links to share in the chat, but tell us about where you like to talk when you're not writing books.
Yeah, absolutely. So primarily I have a blog that I run. Mostly I write about tarot there. I'll also occasionally write about witchcraft, Qabala, paganism, various other things that are on my mind. And that is jackofwandstarot.wordpress.com. Wands as in the suit of wands from tarot, Jack as in my name. So jackofwandstarot.wordpress.com. That's my blog. That's where sort of all the good stuff ends up. I'm also on Twitter at Jack_of_wands. I'm on Facebook at Jack of Wands, no underscores in that one. And then I also have a YouTube channel where I, just sit in front of a camera and talk for 15 minutes at a time about some obscure witchcraft topic that has seized my brain. I put a video up yesterday about like the nature of tradition, the concept of tradition, what tradition means and why it matters. And so you can just find that on YouTube just by searching my name, Jack Chanek. And I think that's it for the most part. I've been a little bit around public speaking circuits, not a whole lot, but I gave a talk at Free Spirit Gather last year. I've been on a couple of podcasts, which I'm sure you can find if you Google my name. So there are ways to find things that I've talked about and places that I've been.
Excellent. Well, I hope you don't mind me typing because I was adding Facebook and the YouTube ones to the list that I had created there, but I got your blog, your Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. I also dropped in the link to my review of your book and 3 links where people can buy the book on bookshop.org, Amazon, and Barnes & Noble, where I'm also going to throw all that into the YouTube version of this video.
Love it. See, you do more publicity work for my book than I do. This is fantastic. Thank you.
It's always the best way. Everyone promotes each other, and then we don't have to feel like we're constantly talking about ourselves, right? Well, Jack, it's been such a pleasure. Thank you so much for being the debut guest on 4 Quick Cues. I think this went rather well, at least from what I can tell on my computer. So if nothing else, we'll have a recording to throw on YouTube. And let me go ahead and share the outro graphic real fast here. You can visit majorarqueerna.com for more stuff from me. I hope to make this a somewhat regular occurrence with other pagan authors in the near future, so stay tuned and sign up for my newsletter if you want to hear more about it. But anyway, any final words, Jack, before we close it out?
Not really. Thank you so much for having me. This has been a lot of fun.
All right, thanks so much. And everyone, have a wonderful rest of your day.